as board-certified immigration law specialist. So Attorney Jen is here to provide real estate professional with comprehensive understanding of the immigration process and policies that will impact our clients seeking to immigrate and stay in the U.S. on various types of work visa. So please take it away. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I just want to do a little bit of self-introduction. I'm really excited to be here. I went to junior high in Oak and then Temple City High School, and so I graduated in 2003. So it's been a long time since I came back to this area, and so when I was invited to come and speak in this area, it's like, this is my stomping ground. I used to buy comic books up and down the street, eating at the Shisengumi, all the different places. This is very familiar grounds, and I really, really love being back here.
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. Today I want to share a lot of information to try to help all of you be better. And feel free to ask any questions that you may have, okay? So we're gonna be available, feel free to ask questions. Our firm, we have offices in Taipei and in Shanghai, and we're quite familiar with the immigration process. Been doing this for 30 years. My father started it back in the 80s, my aunt continued it, I graduated law school, I'm running it, and I've also worked overseas in London. The immigration space, and a lot of immigration lawyers don't even know a lot of things that I want to share with you, because a lot of people think immigration is very simply somebody outside the US wanting to come back into the US and get a visa or get a green card. Hopefully, based on what I shared today, you will see it is so much broader than that, and every single type of clientele have different needs, and that's where you shine, because based on different clientele, they have different needs, and based on different needs, they are shopping for different things. And if they're shopping for different things, what is treasure for somebody is trash for somebody else. So I'm gonna elaborate a little bit more, and I'll start by saying the immigration process starts, let's say, overseas. And there are people who don't want to come to the US. So they don't even want a visa, but they want to park their money into the US in the real estate market. There are plenty of those. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about that, but just know that that is a huge demographic. People who don't want to come to the US, don't want a visa, but they want to park their money in the US to buy real estate. You could work with financial advisors overseas, and work with them through their trusts to buy property. So there's that set of clientele. There are also people who just want a simple tourist visa. Many of you are here, and it's been a long time since you've been overseas and need a tourist visa. Or you might think a tourist visa might be the simplest thing to do or to get. It's just a tourist visa. You just want to come to Disneyland. I want to share that in many countries, it is incredibly hard to get a tourist visa. The wait time is over 2 years. The denial rate is 70, 80, 90%. People who had a 10-year tourist visa, who've taken it for granted, got canceled, and now when they go back to the consulate to try to get it, to be able to enter, now they can't. What can they do? A lot of opportunity there for many of you, because when you are the consulate and you are handing out these visas to people to come and visit the United States, you want to see why are they coming here, what are they doing, and if the person who is coming to the US is up to no good or just coming to, shop or visit Disneyland. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not really interested in giving you the visa. I'm gonna cancel it or not gonna give it to you. And so that's why the denial rate is that high. For example, in Mexico, the wait time is over 2 years. In Canada, waiting time is over 2 years. Philippines, good luck, right? There's a lot of places that is extremely hard, and it's getting harder and harder, especially in China, right? They got the 10-year visa under Obama's presidency, and it's been some time, and there might be a chance where that might be canceled entirely. And so 1 billion people not being able to get the simplest tourist visa. There are entire industries, lawyers and agents, purely dedicated to help different people to get a tourist visa. That's how big the demographic and clientele we're talking about. Now, what can real estate agents do? What can lenders do? Well, if coming to the US to visit Disneyland, to go to Comic-Con, to go to Anime Expo is not that big of a deal, the consulate is not inclined to give you a visa based on that reason, well, what about solving the affordable housing crisis? If you are coming as an investor to buy different property, to do different things, to help different city and governments, well, that sounds interesting. That sounds like it's a problem worth investing in, and that's much bigger reason for the consulate to issue a B1, B2 visa for an international executive to come to the US to buy property, to buy land, to build, right? You see that? Now, that doesn't mean it has to be set in stone. The consulate wants to see documents where might be possible. So maybe offers from sellers, maybe an escrow already signed, maybe a deposit. You see where I'm going. As a real estate agent, you have the power, you know the methods, you know the resources to get documents for people to be able to come to execute these plans. And if they can come, they get the tourist visa, they like it here, eventually they use other visas to get green cards, and they execute their plan, right? So that's just a simple tourist visa. Now let's talk a little bit about F1 student visa. Just like B1, B2, there's entire industries dedicated just for the F1 visa, single-handedly, helping international students come to the US to study. What do they need? Parents are extremely worried for their children overseas in a new land that they can't speak the language themselves. Real estate agents, again, can help a lot of international students, not just buying a house, a condo in a good school district for them to live in, right? But there are plenty of those. And I'm sure, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because I think the B1, B2, and F1 are some of the most obvious categories that you guys might be already familiar with. But just knowing that international students, high schoolers without parents needing to be here, needing guardians to take care of them, what is one of the greatest needs that they have? Maybe it is buying a property for them to live in, not realistic for a high schooler. What do they want more? Maybe they want a homestay, somebody who can take care of this high school student, and you can set up to actually find a lease agreement so that the parents directly pay the people and the parents can take the children to go to school, to take care of them. The rent could be much higher, but the parents feel a lot safer. As a real estate agent, you might not need to sell a house. You might need to just be able to make the link. And who better to know who just recently bought a house that might be a little bit too big and has an extra room to spare, and where these international parents might like. You guys know who in your circle will likely be a good homestay parent, and you can rent a room out for them, $2,000, $3,000, and then you can sign an agreement, and both sides will gladly pay a small percentage of that lease agreement to you who connected them. F1 students, it's a huge market for high schoolers, for college students, for grad students, and also there are plenty of people who are international students who are actually 30, 40, 50 years old. I'm constantly doing consultations for this. People who enter as a B1, B2 tourist, and then change to international student. And then I'm sure HSBC is going to cover that. How are you going to get a loan as an international visitor, as an F1 student? But if you can get the loan, depending on who you are, because many people, and I don't want to assume, but overseas, elementary school, junior high, high school is extremely expensive if you go to good schools. It's like college tuition. You think college tuition is expensive in the US? Elementary school overseas and an international school is equal, if not more expensive. But here in the US, there are really good school districts that you go for free, because as long as you live in the area, right? So if a parent bringing their 2-3 kids come to the US as a tourist, falls in love with the United States, loves salt and straw and cheese and gumi, and then files a change of status, becomes an international student, lives in a particular school district. San Marino is a great place. There's a lot of good places with good school, has an apartment, and then now all the kids can go to the schools for free. That's amazing deal, and a lot of people are looking for that. As immigration attorneys, we can only do the change of status. We can't do anything else, but the need is so great. So just so you know, if you dedicate yourself just focusing and helping the F1 international students, whether it's high schooler, college, or above, that is a whole demographic in and of itself. That's the F1 status. I want to talk a little bit about the L and the E, because that's something that a lot of people don't know about, and maybe a lot of people want. I'm going to start with the E2 visa and the L1 visa. Essentially, you are an investor for the E2 visa. You're an investor, not EP5 where you get a green card out of it. You're just temporary. If you guys don't know, E2 is known as the mini green card because the rights and privileges of an E2 visa holder is almost the same as a green card with additional benefits, so much so that many people don't want the green card. I just want the E2 for tax reasons, and I'm sure the CPA can explain more about that later on. But many people, right, Indonesians, Singapore, many places in Korea, Japan, if you get a green card, if you get citizenship, sorry, you cannot own land in our country anymore. But they are very privileged elites of their own countries, and they can't sacrifice a lot of that. Many of them have government ties, so they cannot get a US green card as much as they want to. But a E2 grants them almost the exact same privilege: freedom to travel, freedom to work. You're not tied down, and all you need is just to own a small business. Wow, right? So a lot of people do the E2 visa. Now, what's really interesting is a lot of people approach me and say, I want to buy up a lot of land, I want to buy real estate. Real estate is my passion. Can I get an E2 visa via my investment in real estate? The answer is no. You're just an investor, just like you can't just buy a bunch of Disney stock, and say you are investing in the economy and you get a visa, right? You need to own a small business. But this is how you can convert real estate into an E2 visa. You cannot just buy property and get ownership on title and get a visa. But if you operate a small business, which every single one of you are very intimately a part of, whether you own a brokerage firm, whether you own a cleaning company that services different houses, a property management company, I think the list goes on and on. Every single one of these is a legitimate business that already exists. If the investor buys said business, operates the business, has employees, makes money, it's a legitimate business, then they can use that business and get the E2 visa. Now, if the business, all they do is service their own family's investment property, okay, that's fine. No, there's no requirement that you have to serve the public. You're not a nonprofit, right? A for-profit organization can purely service yourself, and that's fine, as long as you can prove that it's a real business and it operates and you have done. So I did a couple cases like that where once the client found out that concept is possible, it's like he got all his family and friends, all the different apartments, hotels, individual houses, everybody signed a contract with his cleaning company, and he just cleans, he hires people to clean all of them and operate all of them, and he has a monthly cash flow, and he got the E2 visa, right? So you could see the potential that creates. Now, take a step back. E2, as amazing and as great as it is limited to partnering countries of the United States. So it's not available for everyone in the whole world. If it was, the system would collapse. But enough people can do it, right? So Canadians could do it, people in Mexico could do it, Taiwan could do it.
Really?
Yeah, Taiwan can do it. Isn't that amazing?
Okay.
Yeah, that's controversial, isn't it? Hong Kong can, China can't. That's E2. Now let's talk about L1. L1 is in some ways preferable to E2 in the sense that it can lead to a green card. E2, it can't become a green card, but it's almost as good as a green card, and some people stay using it. Just a little bit more about E2. Many of you have family and friends, and you can do a sponsorship. Maybe you're a U.S. citizen, and a U.S. citizen is sponsoring your brother and sister, and the wait time is 10 years, the wait time is 15 years. It's an extremely long time, but maybe they want to come sooner, and so they come here via the E2, and they just wait for the priority date. A lot of people do this. So you don't need to spend a lot more money to get the green card through other methods. You just need a way to be in the United States. You buy a coffee shop, that's fine, right? So operate a business, and then you get E2. Now, some people don't have that privilege. Some people don't have any family members that can sponsor them. Some people don't have any other thing. The only thing that they can do is get a green card via their own bootstraps with their own muscle. So you do the L1. You do an L1. You are an executive overseas. You operate factories. You are extremely talented. You have plenty of employees, and now you want to transfer yourself over, or you want to transfer somebody else over, and you start a company in the U.S. So now this is called the executive visa, the L1 visa. You come here, you set up a business, you transfer somebody over, you make the business big enough, you file the EB1C, and then they get the green card. So that's the L1 and the E2 dichotomy. And of course, you can do both if you qualify. But L1 has a requirement, you first need to be an executive overseas. So if somebody is just a very normal employee who's very wealthy, you can't do the L1. You need to be pretty high up there on the business, which plenty of people are, right? Plenty of people overseas are managers, are executives, and so they want to immigrate the entire family over, and so that's what they do. On this topic, I could talk a little bit more about the pain points. What is a pain point of the L1? You need to have a company that is big enough that justifies that you are an executive. If you're just managing one employee, that's not an executive. Even if you're managing 5 employees, if they're just high schoolers, part-time pay, that's not an executive. So a lot of people struggle when their business in the US, after 1 year, after 2 years, is just not operating according to plan. It's not getting big enough. There's a real pain there. And they need it to get bigger. They need it to get better in order for them to get a green card. Their entire life, their children's future depends on if their business is big enough so that the government can grant them a green card. Now, what do? The solution, which I tell my clients oftentimes, is, all right, you've tried your best. It's not easy to run a business in the US. Many people fail, you didn't fail, you're already really good. You've tried your best. Why don't you find somebody to help you? If you can just go and buy some other business, maybe it will help you out a little bit, right? You have 3 or 4 employees, you have 500,000 in revenue. It's good, but it's not great. As real estate agents, you can help them also buy businesses. You guys know the demographic, you guys know the area, you know who wants to sell. Maybe you even started a company and you want to close it down because the side hustle is just not worth it, Plenty of people have that. Many people close down businesses and the business value just turns to 0. Many people just retire and they close down their shops. The value just turns to 0. But that's a shame. It's been running for 10, 15 years. Maybe it's not great, it's not big, but there's still goodwill, there's still, existing contracts and clients and customers. If you guys can find the businesses that are willing to close down and make the connection with these investors that needs to boost their business, make that connection, make the sale, what to somebody is just a burden that they want to close down suddenly becomes something of value that they can sell. And I have seen many people who own little small businesses, small shops, taco stands, donut shops, you name it, laundromats this year, last year, plenty of laundromats closing down. There will be, before COVID, the selling price, 100, 150, 200,000 for a laundromat. There are plenty of people who are willing to sell it for 50 and they can't, and so they close it down. If you guys are able to find different businesses and reach out to these investors that have these L1 businesses that want to expand it, if you could make that link, again, that is your forte, being able to match different people, right? As immigration attorneys, we can't. All we do is paperwork. All we do is we have this argument to make. You have to give us the best argument you can, and then we make it for you. But these facts only you guys can do. So that's the L1. That's the E2. Oh yeah, you can also buy businesses with E2. You don't have to just start your own business, right? So if you guys can find businesses, somebody overseas from Taiwan, from Singapore, from Korea, from Japan, they can get their whole family here via E2, come to the US. Their spouse can work for any company, not like H-1Bs. Their children can go to any public school, and they just have to work for their own coffee shop. If they even want to work, right? Many people don't want to work. They just want to invest, they want the status, and they want the freedom to go travel and shop. That's perfectly fine. The E2 is not made so that you have to work. In fact, they don't want you to work. So the prime example is a dentist coming to the US to start dentistry. That gets denied all the time because you're stealing American dentist jobs. You need to be an investor to come here to hire American dentists. So there are plenty of people who are overseas coming here, invest in the E2, get the business, the whole family has status, the children could go to school, and now they have the freedom to travel around the world and they're not bound in the US. O1 is the last non-immigrant category I want to touch upon. It is an extraordinary ability visa category, and it's extremely fun to talk about. It's basically the mini version of the extraordinary ability green card, which I'll talk about later on. It's the mini version. And what do you mean extraordinary ability, right? Basically, if you could prove you're one of the best in your field and you want to come here temporarily, 3 years, 6 years, 9 years, continuously, you come here on the O1. The person coming does not have the obligation of running a big enterprise or making a lot of money, but they're able to be here to do what they love to do. And it could be anything, practically, anything, right? So most people, when they think about this, they think movie producers, they think celebrities, but what about a gardener? What about somebody who does masonry in your backyard? You want a certain type of masonry. You want to cut the bonsai tree in a very particular way. Can you find that in the US, a bonsai specialist? There's only so many, but back in Japan, there are plenty of these experts, and this guy was published in a magazine, published a few articles. He's one of the best. I want to invite so-and-so to come over 3 years to prune my bonsai tree. They could get an O1 visa. You see what I'm saying? If you can prove you're the best in your particular field, if you're a chef, you want to hire them to make this particular dumpling dish, they could get the O1. O1 is for anyone in any field. They are an employee, they are an agent, they come here. You can be an agent. Oh my goodness, I forgot to mention that. A lot of people, and if you search this on social media, one of the requirements for an O1 is that they need somebody to bring them over. They need a sponsor, they need an agent. However, that word is an extremely loaded word. If you ask anybody on the streets, and the common knowledge to most Americans, are you willing to sponsor this immigrant? The answer is gonna be no. There's too much liability, there's too much risk, and I don't have a company. The company, the CEO, the boards, they're not gonna accept it. Sponsorship is an extremely loaded word. O1 sponsors is super unique. It's so unique to the point that there's nothing like it in any other visa category. Anyone can be an agent. You, as a real estate agent, can be an agent. And all it is, you have practically no responsibility. You can be an agent to be the middleman, that's what it means. Basically be the middleman between what this foreigner, who is extraordinarily good at doing one particular thing, you are linking them to do something else for somebody else. So you know of a very wealthy person who has a bonsai tree, and you found somebody else. You could be the agent that brings them over and signs the paperwork. Now let's go through the immigration categories where you can get a green card, which is what a lot of people want, right? Majority of people want it. And so I'm gonna go through that very quickly. EB1A is when you can get a green card by the sheer power of how extraordinary you are. It's like the advanced version of the O1. You prove you're the best in your field, bam, the government gives you a green card. It's kind of like winning the Nobel Prize. EB1B, it's a great researcher. EB1C is you are an executive of a big company here in the United States. And so since you are employing so many people, you're providing such a good product and service, we will give you a green card. That's EB1C. EB2, EB3 is like the advanced version of the H1B, which you guys know about. Companies sponsor H1B people to come over to their company to work, and if they're good enough employees, they get, the company sponsors them, they get an EB2, EB3. None of this really relates to, I think, real estate that much, but at least right? And then EB4, typically religious workers, or if you are a translator for Afghanistan, you could get a green card. EB5 is the investment. I want to stop here for a little bit because I know this is a sensitive issue. This is something that a lot of you know about. Maybe you've been a part of it. EB5 is the program where if an investor overseas invests a substantial amount of money dictated by the Congress, and you are able to get a green card. So over the years, especially in San Gabriel, where we've seen the tremendous influence of that. In the past, people invest 500,000. Now it's up to 800,000 or over $1 million. If you invest and you create 10 jobs, then you can get a green card. There's so much problems and fraud in the industry that is almost unintentional, but the system itself created all of these problems that there's a lot of bad news about it. And as real estate agents, you might be bombarded with a lot of these questions. So let me take my time and kind of just explain what is true and what is not true, and so you can be better inform your own clientele. So one thing, it is true that the government, USCIS, has a new policy so that if somebody does invest right here, right now, there's no priority date, that long backlog for EB5 investors is now gone, and you can immediately get a green card. That is true with some nuanced exceptions. What that means is if you invest in certain projects, if you invest in certain fields, and you invest that required amount, the $800,000 or $1 million, you can cut the line. So the people who invested back then, right, from 2015 all the way to now, they're still waiting in line. Sorry, you invested back then. But the new law that went into effect, now if you invest based on the new requirement, then yes, your entire family can immediately file the adjustment of status and start the green card process. So that itself is true. What are the things that you can invest in to fit this requirement? Well, it depends on the region where you are investing. The government, USCIS, made something that was unclear for a reason, and it's extremely unfortunate. But in the past, it's like, should I invest $800,000 or $1 million? Well, what area? How high is the unemployment rate? Well, what does it say on the website? If this zip code says it's a high unemployment, then that's fine. That's the old way. Super simple. It's based on a website that the government produced. Now they don't trust that website anymore. Well, then what are you gonna do, right? And so basically they're forcing everybody to really invest in the $1 million. And then the source of fund. Your $1 million better be real. It better be, you sold a property and you paid taxes on it and you got it. For many people overseas, proving that you earned your $1 million to invest lawfully and legally is extremely difficult. And they're getting stricter and stricter on how they adjudicate this, to the point where they go back in time. So for example, when you invest $1 million, maybe your work permit to allow you to travel and work temporarily, that could get approved pretty fast, within half a year. Probably you won't be able to get it. So a lot of people sell that. Oh, invest $1 million, we'll get you a work permit. Oh, great, hallelujah. But then the temporary green card comes many years later. Well, great, hallelujah, I got my 2-year temporary green card. It must mean everything is going smoothly. And then I did hire 10 employees. I did hire 20 employees, and my company did great and filed taxes. And then you file the 829 permanent green card. At that stage, you've already been here for 4, 5, 6 years. Your company is running well. Everything is going great. You did everything on your end, bargain end. And then the government comes back and says, hey, by the way, 6, 7 years ago, you said you got your $1 million from piano lessons, and you gave 5 years of tax returns. Hey, 1 year tax return wasn't signed, and I don't think it's real, and so I'm gonna deny your whole family green card. That is happening. Not only now, it will probably will happen in the future. It's kind of like, imagine if you're doing a mortgage application and you approved it, and somebody pays the mortgage for 10 years, and then afterwards they say, hey, sorry, your original mortgage application was fraudulent, so we're gonna take back the house. Imagine that, right? That's like so bad. But that's in the purview of the United States government, where they can do. And so immigration, investment, EB5, there's lots of pitfalls and a lot of trouble, and but the requirement is still the same, right? In the sense of you invest money, you run the business, you prove your funds are legitimate, you hire 10 employees. It could be minimum wage in your area, so California area versus Ohio, different minimum wage. As long as you're paying 10 minimum wage employees with your investment for a period of 2 years, that you can get conditional green card and permanent green card. The rules seem simple enough. Everybody is smart, intelligent, well-informed, and can easily do that. People who made over $1 million overseas are like, hire 10 employees, I hire 1,000, I could do this. Yet, the rules is complicated, and many people fall into hard times because of the EB5 program. But that's the green card process. Now, I want to talk a little bit about things that you might not know. this is the good part, right? All that was great, but this is getting really good.
Pay attention.
Here's 2 or 3 things that you might not know. The first is there are plenty of people who are in the US illegally, not of their will and volition, but unfortunate circumstances has caused them to now be stuck in the United States and they cannot leave. And there are plenty of stories and data to back this up. I'm not talking about the illegal immigrants that cross through the border and stay here illegally. Of course, that exists and you guys all know about it. I'm talking about the people who might have came in on a B1, B2 visa, changed to a student status, and then unfortunately, the school messes up and now they're stuck here. They can't leave because they can't get a visa. There are plenty of people who are stuck here illegally. And if they're illegal, they cannot work illegally, and they still need to live and they still need to raise their children, so what can they do? That's a huge demographic of people that you can potentially help, right? So I just want to talk about that. Then there's a group of people who got their green cards through EB-5, through extraordinary ability, through EB-1C, through family sponsorship. They came here, they saw, they explored, and it's way too expensive here. Healthcare sucks, and I hate the guns, so I'm leaving, right? So many people leave, but they want the green card. They finally got it. They spent $1 million. They finally got it, but they don't want to be here. They want to come freely. They don't want to deal with the consulate and the visas. They hate that, but they want to be able to just buy a plane ticket, fly to the US. So there are plenty of people who have green cards that are overseas that don't want to live here, but want the green card. Well, you can't have the cake and eat it too. There are rules if you get a green card. You are technically supposed to be a permanent resident of the United States. You are supposed to live here. And if you don't, you need to file a re-entry permit. But many people don't file their re-entry permit, or even if they do file their re-entry permit, which means basically just, I want to be out for a couple years and I want to come back. Some people do that for decades. But every single time they go through the airport, the CBP officer will take a look at them, take a look at their travel history, and be like, "Ooh, you have a green card, but you don't live here. This is a problem. I'm gonna pull you to secondary." And then the CBP officer has the authority to confiscate the green card and make them go to court. Now, where can you guys come in? Well, in order to prove to the CBP officer at the airport that the US is their home and that they have left overseas for a temporary reason, they need documents and an explanation to prove that. So that's what I'm always telling clients. You've left the US for 5 years. COVID, sure, it's a 1-year problem. What about the other 4 years? You need a place. And one of the things that CBP officers at the airport look for the most is, where's your home? If you're a permanent resident, this should be your home country. Where's your home? Many people don't have a home. Or if they do, they might have leased it out. Or they need to buy another home, or maybe they sold their home and moved. That's where you guys can come in and help them get the documents to prove that the US is their home. Lease agreements, new purchases, other real estate properties, your own personal letter explaining their situation. That will help them present documents to the CBP officer to say the US is this person's home. Even though they've been absent for a long time, now they intend to come back more permanently. Something happened tragic overseas, they had to go back to take care of their mother, their father, they had to close down their business, and they sold the house in the US. They left. Now, how is the US their home if they sold their only property and they did not file taxes for 3 years? Well, I never intended to leave forever. It was a temporary thing. I'm not rich enough to just have properties vacant the entire time, especially during COVID, so I sold it back then. But now I'm coming back in 2024, and look, I have a real estate agent that already got me 3 offers. What is the thing that real estate agents say? I am ready, I am motivated. Oh, motivated in all caps, right? I am a motivated buyer to reside in the US with my entire family now. That is a huge demographic, far bigger than you can imagine. Reason being, the US, with all of its history, you can imagine how many people have gotten green cards through the family, through the business category, and who did not find it comfortable to be here and left. And yet, all of them want to be back at one time or another, and you guys can be here to help. Last category, before I end my time here, people who have green cards eventually become citizens. citizens who want to petition their relatives, citizens who don't live here, citizens who need to sponsor their brother and sister, but they're already pretty old, they're not working. They need to convert their real estate into a liquid monetary figure to prove to the US government that they have the financial means to support them. The US government does not like seeing anything not ordinary. What they don't want to see is you have a W-2 job, you have a lot of money in your bank account, and you can sponsor some so-and-so as a family petition for a US citizen. However, many people are already past retirement, or they don't work and they don't have a W-2, and they don't have a bunch of money sitting around, but they have real estate. You guys are there to potentially help convert that real estate to get valuations on it, to prove to the government. The person I'm sponsoring will never be homeless. I'm willing to guarantee them and their safety. They will not be on food stamps. Look at how many properties I have, right? So that is how you guys can help citizens sponsor different people. Yes?
Yeah, thank you for sharing. It's very informative. I do have a question about the 85 program. Are these programs which doesn't have any priority dates riskier than ordinary ones? If they don't have a priority date, is it fair or unfair for the previous applicants? Thank you.
It is extremely not fair. Like, how can that be fair? You invested, back in 2015, you've already waited 9 years, and you still have to continue to wait, and your children aged out, and yet these new immigrants invest $800,000, $1 million, and they can immediately get it. It's not fair, but the government, the law is set up in a way that's like that. But on that note, the government did update a CSPA law last year that made it a little bit fair, meaning, maybe the people invested back in 2014, 15, 16, they have been waiting for an extremely long time. When they invested, the children were in junior high, and now they got the green card because of government's slow process and priority date. That's not fair. So the new law basically enabled those people back then, the children, also to be able to get green cards. I hope this is informative, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Wow. Okay. My God, Joseph covered really a huge area of immigration.
You should order at least 5 dishes. So I honestly didn't know how many people were gonna show up, but I was quite shocked by the audience. I felt very happy that they invited us. I'm glad that our team was able to go, and it was a fun experience. It was very effortless, and now we're able to have really good food and enjoy the day.
Yeah, good dinner. Thank you.